Hello, my name is Pat Trueman. I'm the founder of pornharms.com and the director of the War on Illegal Pornography. Our guest again today is Mark Houck. Mark is the co-founder and president of the King's Men of Pennsylvania. Mark, welcome back.
Thanks, Pat, for having me.
Mark, I asked you earlier in a previous segment about your work. You shut down some porn shops, some strip clubs. Let's take any example. Give us an example of one that's going on around the country right now. Let's talk about it.
Well, there's a strip club actually in Tampa Bay, Florida. In fact, Tampa Bay is known for having the most sexually oriented businesses, I guess, per capita. But we have
I've
some
been
men
down
down there.
there and I was working with the federal government on sex trafficking, and I was given a tour of these businesses, not inside but outside. Some places it's block after block. Strip clubs are big there. So you went into the heart of the enemy.
Right, it was the Lion's Den, and so basically, they targeted these men targeted Mr. Joe Redner, who's the so-called father of the nude lap dance. And so when they went out there, they were giving me all the updates, and we were encouraging them and giving them all the strategies. He came out himself, Mr. Redner, and had a counter protest. Meanwhile, while these men are peacefully praying and witnessing to the community, he's out there with his megaphone and horn and basically spouting all sorts of obscenities and getting all the men fired up, but they just prayerfully stood their ground. And he basically called out the Roman Catholic Church. He said
Why
the
would he do
Catholic men
that?
are spineless. Well, because he's an ex-Catholic himself, and he knows the power of the church and how many men are involved. He said if you Catholic men had any sort of spine, he actually said you're spineless jellyfish, and because you guys don't do anything, that's why men like me can be profitable in this business. And so he sent one of his strippers out, Pat, to actually be there at another protest, and she was very provocatively dressed, immodestly dressed, and she stood there, and these men witnessed to her, and she was all about showing her wares. But by the end of the conversation, she said what her name truly was. I think her stage name was Angel, and she shared who she truly was, and she started to cry, and she actually prayed with the men before she went back in.
So you won one over there, maybe.
It's possible. I mean, it's amazing. We dialogue with a lot of strippers at these places, and they're very curious as to what's going on. But I think when they see the goodness in the men that sincerely want to do good and help people, they really are touched by
And
that.
they get a different picture of men than they would get inside the strip club. Now, I haven't ever been in one, but I've worked with different groups around the country in different states and cities on it. What I hear from the strippers, the ones who have come out of it, is that there isn't a good word said. They treat those women like dirt.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an environment where abuse, physical, possibly verbal, definitely abuse is going on, and obviously there's a lot of uh, you know, language that is definitely encouraging the men to become objectifiers of them in all sorts of ways, and the women in a lot of ways they reciprocate some of that, I guess. So I've heard.
Now, Mark, you gave one example, Tampa, Florida. Give us a success story. Where have you shut down a strip club?
Well, Pat, you were involved with
Well,
one
I
that
don't
we
want to
have down
talk
here.
about me. I want to talk about you. You started it.
Well, Coyote Show Club, we were able to get that out of the community of Quakertown, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, about 45 minutes north of Philly. And basically, we were there at the beginning when they came in as a sports bar, disguised as a sports bar, and became a sexually oriented business
They
overnight.
started by saying that they were a sports bar, not a strip club. It surprised everybody, even the town council, right?
They truly did. They deceived the town council, the supervisors, and basically they got in, and there was a lawyer who owned the lease, I guess, or who was operating or handling that, and he basically used all sorts of legal, whatever he could do, karate, gymnastics, whatever, to get himself in a position whereby they had no choice but to let him operate as a sexually oriented business. But
All
thanks
right.
to
So you were before the town council. Now, that normally a town council might have 5 people in the audience. The Kingsmen organized that community. You got people to turn out and standing room only at those town councils. So they knew that you meant business, right?
Well, the first one was a judicial proceeding where 200 people came out, and we brought our signs. We basically treated it like it was a sexually oriented business that night, and we just stood there. We got a lot of press, and we were just the loudest voice among the citizens. But ultimately, after that first meeting and that hearing, there was another one, and we became sort of the self-appointed spokesperson for Milford Township in Quakertown, Bucks County. And so at the next one, we had about 100 or so people, and we were the point men for that.
And I noticed a difference being up there because the council adopted your platform of restrictions on the strip club. Many people, including town councilmen around the country, councilmen and women, don't understand that you can restrict these strip clubs pretty heavily, can't you?
Well, yeah, we learned a lot about that, and so basically we found that this was a bottle club, which meant it was a bring your own bottle, a BYOB, no alcohol. And so as a result of that, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, there's no nudity allowed. Although this law has never really been enforced, it was the necessary piece of legislation that we needed to put in 34 strict conditions that actually hindered their ability to have a profitable business.
And the end result?
14 months later, they closed their doors, and it's still closed to this date. It's been almost now 2 years since then.
And that's something that could happen in most any community, right, Mark? If they get people like you fired up, get the town council to do the right thing, you can shut these businesses down.
Pat, it took 5 men committed in truth getting this done. So it doesn't take a lot of people to shut down a sexually oriented business. We were able to galvanize a lot of people, but ultimately it was 5 committed men that were involved in this.
Our guest is Mark Houck, president of the Kingsmen of Pennsylvania. Mark, the website is?
thekingsmen.org.
And people can call you from around the country or catch you through that website, and you'll give them some help.
Absolutely. We're here. We're here to serve the people.
Kingsmen.org. Mark Houck has been our guest. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thanks, Pat.